This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, show number 474. This is your spoiler-free place for Star Wars community and conversation. I'm your host, Dan Z. Thrilled to be talking Star Wars with each and every one of you, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you for taking a moment to put aside the turkey, or maybe you're enjoying the show while you're eating turkey and pumpkin pie and all that great stuff, and I don't blame you. I am so thankful for each and every one of you. That is the topic of this week's Coffee with Kenobi, the top 5 things we are thankful for in the world of Star Wars. Joining me is the amazing Steve Sansweet. Who better to talk about what we are thankful for in Star Wars than the guy who's brought so many memories to so many of us. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is returning guest to the show. He is probably certainly one of the most requested and most frequent guests on Coffee with Kenobi, all the way back to when I actually sent you Starbucks. Of course, we're talking about the one and only Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to be back, and it's great to say hello to your vast audience out there in the galaxy.
Yes. Well, we're always happy to chat with you. You have been very, very busy. Everywhere I look, you're popping up. The Rancho Obi-Wan social media is fantastic, and there was a lot of great stuff that you're able to show with the virtual Rancho Obi-Wan Gala. Please let us know about that before we even get started, because there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Well, for the gala this year, we've had a virtual gala for 2 years in a row because of the pandemic. And we've extended what is our virtual online museum. And so it was a mere $10 to sign up for the gala if you weren't already a member, a $10 a month member of the virtual museum. And until November 29th, we have all of the content from the virtual gala on our site, ranchoobiwan.org, in the virtual museum section. So I invite fans to tune in and take a look. And we sent 3 wonderful ladies up to the loft, which we haven't disturbed for about 10 years. And they found all sorts of treasures, including a Star Wars 24-sheet billboard that I didn't know that I had. I mean, the problem with having 300, 400,000 pieces in your collection is that sometimes you forget. Now, how I could forget that is totally beyond comprehension, because I have been pining away and telling the story about how I passed up buying one years and years ago because there was some white paper torn on one of the sheets, and I regretted that, not doing it, because it could have been fixed, and it was only $1,000 back then, and it was a billboard, and they're very rare, and blah, 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 blah. And here I had one, and I don't know how long I've had it, although Ann Newman thinks that it's been there for probably 10 years at least, because of the distance in the pile that it was beneath. So we measure things archaeologically here. If it's 2 inches down, it was under episode 1 material. So she assumes that I got it before 1999.
How perfect that it's archaeological, right? Because I've always actually wanted to ask you about that. Do you have a number of Indiana Jones items?
I used to collect Indiana Jones too, in a modest way, but just about the only thing I have now is a Lego set, because it has the brick with R2-D2 and C-3PO from the Well of Souls.
Sure.
Well of, is that right? Did I say?
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah,
absolutely
okay.
right. Yes. And I remember you telling me one of the first times we had you on that you also had quite an ET collection as well.
I had a huge ET collection. In fact, I think it was the only ET collection in the world. Nobody else collects ET, as I found out when we were selling things off. And I have flipped a lot of things. I started collecting space toys, Japanese robots, and the newer space toys and Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and all of that stuff. Well, I loved E.T. and I started collecting E.T. too. Star Wars just sort of overwhelmed it all, and at some point, at various points along the way, I've sold off the space toy collection and the E.T. collection, which was, I think there's still some pieces that haven't sold. But yeah, I love science fiction and fantasy movies.
Oh, it's given us so much entertainment, because tonight we're going to talk about the top 5 things we are thankful for in Star Wars. This show, of course, is going to, if you're listening now, then it is Thanksgiving. So have a very happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving to all of you. And really, we're here with Steve, which is the gift that keeps on giving in the world of Star Wars. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So you are my guest, so I would love for you to go first. What is number 5 you have on your list?
Number 5 is sort of related to Star Wars, but not specifically Star Wars. My job at the Wall Street Journal, where I was a reporter, a deputy bureau chief, and then bureau chief for 26 years, the last 9 of which I was bureau chief in Los Angeles. What that meant was I was invited to the all-media screening for a little movie named Star Wars on the back lot of 20th Century Fox at the Darrell F. Zanuck Theater 2 Saturdays before, on the 14th of May, 1977. And Star Wars opened, at least in 32 theaters, on May 25th. But I was there in the audience and hadn't read any reviews, hadn't had the movie spoiled for me, just the way I approached E.T. on the first screening. And it was just a marvelous experience. And I, just like so many others of us who saw Star Wars on the big screen, the experience of sitting in an audience of journalists and looking overhead as the Star Destroyer came through, saying, where the hell is that coming from? And just sort of giggling to ourselves because, of course, we had been taken in by the mastery of George Lucas's magic. And that was an experience I will never forget. And after the screening was over, I went up to the vice president of publicity, who was in charge of inviting the journalists in the audience, and said, could I get my screening ticket back? That was one of my initial collectibles. Not the first, but one of the initial ones.
Do you still know where that is?
No. It's we have a huge ephemera collection, and we've started sorting through it, and we have all kinds of file cabinets, and so it's just a matter of going through 100 boxes and cataloging everything, and we've started that process, and we will find it.
Marvelous. Concetta, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Number two in my Wall Street Journal experience with Star Wars was my first interview with George Lucas in 1987, because I wanted to do, I convinced the Journal to do an op-edit piece on Star Wars, the 10th anniversary, the first 10 years of Star Wars. And who better to do that but a true fan and journalist, of course. And this was one of the ways I was going to get up to Skywalker Ranch and visit the Holy Mecca. But I was told George would be happy to do it on the phone. And I said, yeah, but I'd be happy to come up there. I'd be happy to fly up. It's just, an hour trip. And George would be happy to do it on the phone. Okay. So I didn't make it up to Skywalker Ranch that time, but I had a wonderful half-hour interview with George and wrote a piece for the op-edit page of the Wall Street Journal on the 10th anniversary of Star Wars and what it meant. The third thing, the skills that I developed at the Journal and the confidence that I had to cold call the new head of publishing at Lucasfilm in 1990 when I heard that they were going to publish a book, or were looking or considering a book, a price guide, the first official Star Wars memorabilia price guide, and cold called and said, if anybody writes that book, it should be me. And the response was, and you are who? And then I can say, well, I'm a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. I did this interview with George 3 years ago, blah, 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 blah. And that was the beginning of a real relationship with Lucasfilm that lasts to this day. And now I will take a breath and let you speak.
I can just listen to you talk all the time, which is one of the reasons why it's fun to do the virtual Rancho Obi-Wan Gala tours, which I love so much. So my number 5 is, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but the first time I saw Star Wars was in 1978. In 77, every time I went, it was sold out. I never got a chance to see it. We tried 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It was so discouraging. And then one fateful day, we pull onto this gravel road, and my dad rolls down the window and he says, 4 for Star Wars. And so the first time I saw it was at a drive-in movie theater in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1978.
Holy cow, a drive-in. My goodness. What an experience.
Yes, it really was. And, you know, we talk about the Star Destroyer, of course. It's so iconic. But 2 things stood out to me in that viewing. I mean, there are a lot of things stand out to you because here we are still talking about it over 40 years later. But the Millennium Falcon and lightsabers. In a mythology full of iconography that is just spellboundingly cool, the Millennium Falcon and lightsabers have been the 2 things that I've been the most thankful for, because I just, you know, with my children, stuff at Galaxy's Edge, of course, the countless movies and video games and animated stuff, and then the Darksaber and the Mandalorian. These are the things that have just taken my imagination and sent it everywhere possible. You know, like you, I'm sure if we were to go through and look at every single piece in your museum, which would take a very, very blessedly long time, it would be heavenly. But surely the Millennium Falcon would be one of the most frequently seen pieces. Just the image of it alone just captures the imagination. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I feel like people know what the Millennium Falcon is, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, that was great. There are many Millennium Falcons at Rancho Obi-Wan. Edible ones and otherwise.
I thought of you when I got this. Did you get this yet?
No, I was very jealous when I saw the photo that you posted, the goldfish. So that's going to be available in January, huh?
January, that is correct. Yes. You will love them, of course, because I know you've got an amazing collection of edible Star Wars items.
Yeah, including 40-year-old Pepperidge Farm cookies.
Ooh. And the C-3PO cereal, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've eaten all that, but there's still some cookies around.
Great. Well, what's your number 4?
Number 4 is the Star Wars merchandise, the original Star Wars Kenner action figures, which really rekindled the collecting bug in me. I had started collecting space toys again months before Star Wars came out, and but this was really special. There was something about the action figures. I opened all 12 of my first action figures in 1978, put them on the shelf, put clay under the feet to make them stand up, and still kept the cards and tried to get the bubbles off as well as I could, because I was, even back then when I was buying space toys, I was taking pictures of everything, but trying to keep the packaging intact. Eventually, of course, I decided I needed to replace as minty figures on cards as I could find, and went to a dealer about 40 miles from my home in Los Angeles, and he put together a set of the 12 figures for me. And I think there was something like $145 for all 12 figures mint on the card. If only we had a time machine these days to go back and relive that. Then he took out another figure that he had below the counter and said, "Are you interested in this?" And it was a Jawa, but I had never seen this one before because it had a vinyl cape on it, and it was on an unpunched card. And I said, well, that's ugly. Why would they do something like that? I said, did some fan make that? And he said, no, this was we understand it was an early production item, and then they decided to go with the cloth cape. I said, well, how much do you want for it? And he said, well, I need to get $45 for it. And I said, 45? I just paid you 145 for 12 figures, and you want 45 for that? I'll pass. And so I only had a couple of bucks left on me. He only took cash, and I needed gas. And I didn't know how much gas I had in the tank. So I went outside, put the key in the lock of the car, and said, well, and walked back in and gave him $45 in cash, and then crossed my fingers that I'd make it home on the quarter of a tank of gas that I had.
What a great story.
So you never know. But those action figures really hooked me, and that led to the play sets and the vehicles and, you know, all the wonderful stuff. And then it got well beyond that.
Oh boy. One of my favorite things is when you walk down the stairs of Rancho and you've got that big, beautiful display of all the Kenner Star Wars action figures and that incredible. Did you get that from Target? Does that sound right?
Target hired a company that builds sets and displays, and we did a show for them at LA Live the weekend the weekend before The Force Awakens premiered, and we were in a little Quonset hut, and we had some great displays. We brought down all the figures, and then they gave us all the displays, which we still have here and still use. And that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's a magical piece. I could spend hours just looking at that. And I remember you had given me the advice, you know, because I still have some of my old ones with the Toys R Us price tags, and you said, don't peel them off. And that was great advice, because before I talked to you, I did try to peel one of them off, and I see it every day, and I think, I wish I would have talked to Steve sooner. Yes. Oh, that's great. Well, my number 4 is, you know, there are a lot of moments in memories, and we talked a lot about these last week. Top 5 Ways Star Wars makes us think about family. But for what I'm thankful for, I'm really thankful for Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge is, I mean, I love Walt Disney World. I mean, I worked there in college. I proposed to my wife there. We had our honeymoon. We've taken the boys several times. But when I heard that Disney purchased Lucasfilm, I was so overcome with emotion knowing we're going to get at episode 7, 8, and 9. I remember you talking to Jason and Jimmy on their show. I believe you were driving to a meeting, and I remember you talking about it, and just I could hear the excitement in the focus in your voice, and it was just also magical. But then one day, they announced that they were going to open a Star Wars land, basically on both coasts, and I actually cried. I cried because I thought, everything has come together now for me. This wonderful place that brought me out of my shell. I've said many times, before I was a teacher, I was a very shy, quiet, insecure young man. And then I worked at Disney, and it brought me out of my shell, and it just focused me in such a different way. I think, and you know this as well as anybody, when you find your path, doors open up for you and things happen. And boy, did things ever happen. And I go to Galaxy's Edge. I went to the media preview, and getting to see the Millennium Falcon, the only one-scale Millennium Falcon ever built for both coasts, you feel like a kid again. When you see it, you feel like a kid again. Then I got to bring my wife and my little guy, Mason, to it, and he was just amazed. Seeing it through the eyes of someone you love is very, very special. And one of my favorite stories about Galaxy's Edge is that we spent the whole day there, and then I said to Deanna, you know what? And every Saturday we have something called Dadder Day, where he and I hang out together and we just do something. And I said, we think we're going to have Dadder Day tomorrow at Batu at Galaxy's Edge. Would you like to come with us? And she goes, I think I've seen enough brown rocks for one day. That's what her response was. So she went shopping at Disney Springs, and we spent the whole day again at Galaxy's Edge. He built the lightsaber. at Savvy's workshop, which to me is the most magical thing there in a land full of magical opportunities, moments, and merchandise. Like, you know, you got, when we go there, we got to get out of there.
The merchandise is incredible because so much of it is in fantasy. And I love that that whole idea and that whole concept of what they've come up with.
Magnificent. And those legacy lightsabers are just, they're something else. They are really, really special. When you look at a legacy lightsaber, I'm sure, I mean, how does it compare to a Master or replica lightsaber?
Well, I've never actually had one in my hands, Dan.
Really?
Yes.
That is wild to me.
I have a Savvy's one that I built, which I love.
Oh, perfect. It's pretty much the same exact thing. Really, but the weight.
I haven't gotten back to Batu since the initial media day out here in Anaheim.
Yes.
So
okay, well,
I'm anxious to do that.
Well, hopefully for Celebration, for Star Wars After Dark, or even some other time, they'll be able to. You would think if Steve Sansweet is on Batu, that is a royal situation. We got to get you back in there.
I look forward to it.
Oh, that'll be great. So yeah, that is my number 4, Galaxy's Edge, and everything that encompasses that. So we are back to you for number 3.
Number 3 is the early shows, Comic-Cons, the Star Trek shows, the science fiction conventions, and the dealers that I met and who befriended me and who I became great friends with. There were these ladies, Anne and Judy, who were science fiction dealers, and I helped them, they helped me. I used to do a toy show in Glendale, California, that I had a lot of wind-up toys, battery-operated toys, some of the robots, but a lot of other battery-operated toys and older things for sale. And Anne and Judy wanted to sell Star Wars stuff at this show. And I got a call from the lady who ran the show and said, I'm a little reluctant to give them a booth because I think, that's new stuff that you can just buy at the store. And I said, no, this stuff is highly collectible. This is in the early 80s. And I said, I think you would not go wrong you wouldn't be embarrassed by having a Star Wars dealer at the show. Imagine the time when you would have to talk up having a Star Wars dealer at a show, at a toy show. That was one of the shows that Michael Jackson used to come to in disguise as a doctor or as a clown. Passed by the booth a couple of times. So he just called it, of course, by dressing up like that, he just called attention to himself. But Anne and Judy also got me into a show. I think it was the 10th anniversary of Star Wars. There was a show in San Jose, California that I flew up for because they were going to have a lot of dealers, and they got me in an hour early. And there was something that I spied from the door, and I immediately went over to this. There was a chair, and I said to the dealers, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, some guy who worked at ILM brought it to us, and we think it's a Boba Fett backpack." And in fact, it turned out to be a Boba Fett stunt backpack. And I said, how much? And they said, oh, we're going to just sort of leave it there and see what it attracts during the show. And I said, I just kept bugging them. Of course, I had flown up, and I had flown up for the day. And so even if I was able to convince them, I didn't have any way of getting it back. So I went over to Anne and Judy and said, if I can manage to get this prize, would you be willing to take it back to where you live? And then I will come over at some point and pick it up in Southern California. And they said yes. And so I went back and I bugged them so much that about 5 minutes before the show opened, they agreed to sell it to me for an incredibly reasonable price, given what it was and what it was to become. And it was indeed one of the stunt backpacks used in the desert outside Yuma, Arizona, in filming the Sarlacc scene. And so I thank Ann and Judy for that. Another guy named Mike Stannard, who came over from the UK and introduced me to foreign toys, and where I got my Palitoy vehicles and play sets. I met a guy named Jim Stevenson who advertised in Toy Shop, which was a bi-weekly tabloid newspaper filled with ads before the internet, before eBay. And he called himself Mr. Star Wars, and he truly was. Really nice guy who's passed on, unfortunately. But we did a lot of trading and a lot of talking and a lot of deals. And a guy in Los Angeles named Harry Frydenberg, who was a poster dealer and also a bit of a bootlegger. He was responsible for bootlegging the famous triple bill poster. Unfortunately, he made a mistake when he was doing it. And the triple bill poster is actually, there are 18 of them and from 9 different theaters in North America, and they are photographic. And he printed his, of course. And so the black ink rubs off because there's so much of it. And he used a newspaper ad as the basis for his poster. And the newspaper ad had 2 lines of type, whereas the poster has 3 lines of type. So everybody knows it's a bootleg. But Harry enabled me to buy, I did a deal with Harry and his sons to buy a huge chunk of poster from the guy who was at that point, the world's largest Star Wars collector, a guy named Walter Steuben in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we bought hundreds and hundreds of posters, and I got first choice. But by doing that, it enabled me to pick and choose just the posters that I needed. But it was the basis of my poster collection, which now is about 3,000 Star Wars posters and art prints and great stuff. So a lot of fond memories, a lot of wonderful people who helped me out in the early days of collecting.
Isn't that magical? Boy, that is just so, it's so gratifying, isn't it? Because a lot of these things that we're talking about, there are moments, there are memories, there are things we're grateful for and that we're thankful for, but it always brings wonderful people into our lives.
Yes.
They become
absolutely.
like their friends and family. That actually brings me to the number 3 thing I'm most thankful for in Star Wars, and it is you, my friend, Steve Sansweet in Rancho Obi-Wan. Yes, absolutely. So you don't know this, but of course, as a Star Wars fan, especially in the 90s and with the Phantom Menace and all those things that were happening, and then your role with Lucasfilm, so many collectors, countless collectors, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the show now. It's true. You have always been sort of the gold standard, not only because of your amazing collection and your vast knowledge and expertise, but you've always been so accepting and so gracious. You're a man of intelligence and clout, and you've never let that become a barrier. You've always embraced so many fans throughout the world. And that's really special. And that's really, really rare. And then the first time I had you on the show, Corey and I were so excited and dare I say a little nervous, because this is Steve Sansweet that's going to be on Coffee with Kenobi. And then we, of course, met at Celebration and a lot of the galas, and we've seen each other at some of the premieres. And then years ago at one of the galas, the auction was about to start. And you and I hadn't gotten a chance to talk yet because the gala is very, very busy. There's a lot of people going on. A lot of people want to see you and talk to you. And you saw me, and we kind of jogged across the room, and you gave me a big hug. And that meant so much to me. I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about it, because it's sort of like Steve Sansweet is here. He's kind, he's loving, he's accepting. And I just felt like I was a bigger part of the community because I know you well enough that I got to give you a hug. And that meant so much to me. You are just a great guy. And I know you're not someone who likes a lot of attention necessarily, but You deserve it, my friend. I am definitely thankful for you and your friendship.
Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that a lot. I mean, it goes both ways, obviously. And that sort of crosses over to my number 2, which was my job at Lucasfilm, which sort of happened on a fluke. It was time to do something else at the Wall Street Journal. I didn't want to go back to New York headquarters. I didn't want to run a Southern California business edition of the Journal. I didn't want to become a super reporter. And I got this strange call from Lynn Hale, Vice President of Publicity, about to retire at Lucasfilm, asking me if I knew of anybody who would want a 1 year only, definitely 1 year only job reporting to Lucasfilm and going out and talking about the special editions to fans across the US. And I said, sounds interesting, let's talk. And that led to 15 wonderful years at Lucasfilm, working with a great team, working at all 3 locations, Skywalker Ranch for several years, Big Rock Ranch, and then the Presidio. It was a thrill to meet and work with George Lucas. And I mean, I didn't have that many meetings with George, but a couple times a year we would be involved in projects together. The Fan Film Awards was always a highlight on my schedule because George picked the George Lucas Awards winner, the top prize in the fan films, along with the Audience Choice Award. And I would go there and would record George announcing the winner of the prize, sometimes on cue cards, sometimes on a little note opening in an envelope. But it was great, and it got me to tour the world, meeting thousands of fellow fans, and becoming friends with hundreds of fans, and friends to this day. It's been remarkable, helping the 501st Legion get established and getting their relationship approved with Lucasfilm. Although there were some people at the company back in the early days who worried about people in Darth Vader masks robbing banks. And I said, they're going to do that anyway if we're making Darth Vader masks. So just really fond memories of spreading the gospel of Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and being able to visit the filming sets of all 3 prequel movies with editors of the fan club magazines from around the world, seeing George in action on the set for a couple of hours, meeting some of the actors, meeting many of the actors from the original trilogy, and then meeting the actors from the prequels, both on the set and at shows. I followed my bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, and it led me to some truly amazing places.
Let's take a quick break, and we will return with more from Steve Sansweet, including a great story about the reveal of the title of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
And didn't you, I believe, was it for Revenge of the Sith where you got to reveal the logo, like in the Superman fashion?
That was the best. Yeah, that was absolutely the most exciting experience. When my boss, Jim Ward, who was Vice President of Marketing at Lucasfilm, told me that he was going to let me reveal the title of the film. People who aren't Star Wars fans don't realize how the title of the films is such an important part of Star Wars fandom, of the reveal of the title. It says so much, or it mystifies, or it just raises all kinds of questions. and I knew we had a great title for episode 3, and so I decided that we would do a fun thing on the fans, and we would do a reveal film. And so we had a wonderful editor at Lucas Video Productions who cut together this 3-4 minute video where we showed action from each of the movies, and then we had episode 4, and then the Star Wars, after some action from the movie, the title of the film rolled up. 5, 6, 1, 2, and then we had some behind the scenes action from episode 3. I think it was Ewan and Hayden fighting, and then rolled up on episode 3, and then instead of the title coming up, we stopped the film and then rolled back, and people went, oh, and then rolled forward again, and then Revenge of the Sith, and people screamed and shouted, and I walked in front of the podium there, and I was wearing an overshirt, and took off the overshirt, opened the overshirt, and there I had the t-shirt with the old style Revenge of the Sith logo on it. And I said, and by the way, the StarWars.com booth on the floor of the convention center is selling these shirts as of now. And people stampeded out of the room. And the Comic-Con people told me afterwards, we wish you would have said something. We almost had an incident. So it was great. It was absolutely an amazing experience.
That is great. There are stills of that, of you with your shirt open with the logo, and who better to do that than you? That's great. And then of course leading to merchandise. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Of course, it ties it all together, doesn't it?
It really does. So as we keep doing this, but yours leads, number 2 leads to my number 2. I have 2 words for this. I have community and I have celebration. The 2 often intertwine, really, when it comes to Star Wars, because I still very much believe that we have a welcoming, vibrant, amazing community. And there's nowhere is that more on display than a celebration. The very first time that Lucasfilm had a celebration podcast stage, we were picked to be the first show to go on there. And it was amazing because we had just seen the first trailer for The Force Awakens, Chewie, We're Home. Everyone went ballistic. Right. Everyone went crazy. And we're running over to try to get everything set up. And Corey and I are talking, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And we got to focus. We got to do this. We walk in there and I look up and the place is packed. Everybody wants to talk about the trailer. I see Leland Shee in the audience. And I felt like, my goodness, what's going on here? This is really, what a wonderful, rewarding thing. I was so thankful, so grateful, and so blessed seeing this wonderful community. Everybody was so supportive. And we weren't the only show in town. Of course, there are lots and lots of Star Wars podcasts. More and more pop up every single day. But in my experience, I have found everyone to be very welcoming, very gracious, and very willing to boost everybody up. So Star Wars is a big, big pie, and there's lots and lots and lots of slices. And if you're the small amount of people that aren't necessarily on the same wavelength, that's why God invented the mute button. And then you just don't have to think about it. It's very simple. Very simple.
Very simple, Dan.
So yeah. And it's always been so much fun. Again, the community met so many wonderful people, been so many wonderful places. And there's not a day that goes by since I've been doing the show for 8.5 years that I'm not appreciative, thankful, and grateful for the good fortune I've had because of hard work, because of perseverance, and because of this wonderful, amazing Star Wars community. And I know next year when Celebration happens again, I think those hugs are going to be just 1 or 2 seconds longer. The smile is going to be just a little bit bigger. The laugh's going to be a little bit more soulful because we've waited so long to get back together. And boy, is it going to be special.
And talk about special, my memories of Celebration 1 and working with Dan Madsen, the incredible Dan Madsen,
Yes.
and coming up with the idea of Celebration and being able to put it together despite all the trauma and problems that we had, the 50-year rains in Denver, and wondering whether we would ever do anything like this again. And here we are going to, I think, what will be the 14th celebration, including the international ones. It was pretty amazing. Number one on my list to be thankful for is the establishing of Rancho Obi-Wan and the huge help of my compatriot in crime, Ann Newman, who we have recently appointed as president and chief executive officer of Rancho Obi-Wan as I become executive chairman and founder of Rancho Obi-Wan. And with Ann's help and Concetta Parker, we came up with the idea of turning the warehouse, it was a little more than a warehouse, but turning it into a nonprofit museum. And Ann has done so much work. From the time that I was having dinner at the Spaghetti Factory in San Diego during Comic-Con with a bunch of people from Rebel Scum and other friends, and I said, well, I really need somebody to help organize and inventory the collection. And Ann raised her hand and said, I'll do it. And Ann came up for a visit for 2 weeks. We got along famously, and the rest is history. And sharing the collection with thousands of fans worldwide, we've had visitors from all over the world. That's what it's all about. It's the stories that we tell, the wonderful docents and volunteers that help us, the people who contribute to it, both monetarily and in items. We just got a new full-sized R2-X2, a droid that appeared in Star Wars, built by someone in the Midwest who wants to remain anonymous, but gifted us this. And something I've always wanted for the museum to be able to, especially for the kids who come and visit. It's just been an amazing journey for the last 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary, and we're strategizing how to continue and grow.
It is a must see. It is a must destination if you are a Star Wars fan. It's a must. It's just I've been there 4 times, and every time I go, I feel like it's the very first time because there's so many amazing things to look at, and Star Wars is so good about the nostalgia aspect anyway, while continuing to perpetuate the future of the franchise as well. And I feel like Rancho Obi-Wan puts that on display like nothing else.
Well, thank you, Dan. We try, and you will be astonished and pleased and a bit befuddled when you visit the next time, because we have changed everything around. We've used the time to go through the museum and move things and make things more accessible and more viewable and change displays. So every time you come here, it looks like a new place.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. Well, yours ties into my number one, and I just put one word. I put mythology. Mythology means story. It's the Greek word for story. And Star Wars is the great American mythology. People who know Star Wars know the history. George creating kind of his own mythology. He wanted to work with the Flash Gordon franchise, and the director fees were absurd. And the way that laid out, he wasn't going to make any money off of it, really. And it was not even going to have him any control. So that fell through, and thank goodness it did, because then he created his own mythology, which became a masterpiece. It has inspired countless generations. You know, this isn't hyperbole. This is real. He has inspired so many different things. As an educator, you know, for years I worked in insurance, and I just didn't feel fulfilled. I just felt like something was missing in my life. And I spent so much time thinking about why I shouldn't be a teacher. I kept talking myself out of it. It was my refusal to call. You mentioned Joseph Campbell earlier. And I kept refusing. And then one day I just decided I need to do this. I've got to work with kids. I want to be a positive role model. I want to teach kids how to think, how to build their self-confidence, how to reach their own potential. The first lesson I ever taught was Star Wars and Shakespeare. First one I ever taught. And I thought, this is great. I can combine my two loves. And I certainly did. That led to so many wonderful things. Countless students I got to introduce the Star Wars franchise to. I got to be in a Target commercial in 2016 because I teach with Star Wars. At that point, I was using it with Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet, of all things, just to appreciate the art of character storytelling, language, all that fun stuff. And then, of course, Coffee with Kenobi and all the wonderful things that has done in my life. And I just keep coming back to it. In fact, after Thanksgiving, we're diving headlong the rest of the semester into Star Wars. We're going to do a little bit of, we've already done A New Hope. We're going to do a little bit of The Mandalorian. We're going to explore some of the prequels. Who knows where it's going to go? Who knows how I'll incorporate the book of Boba Fett? But one thing I know is that this mythology has created so many magical memories, moments, and friendships like we've been talking about. Because I'm a teacher, because I like Star Wars, and because of the show, I was invited to go to a few premieres, and most recently the Rise of Skywalker, where I met a guy named Harrison Ford, and we talked about education. We talked about mythology. We talked about storytelling, and it was magical. It was absolutely magical. That is, people say, what's the one thing that is your favorite thing that you've ever gotten to do because of the show? Well, it's meeting Harrison Ford, because he is a storyteller through the lens of George Lucas. George Lucas created so many wonderful characters. Harrison Ford has personified two pretty significant ones, Han Solo and Indiana Jones. And I am forever thankful for that.
Well, we have a lot to be thankful for. And as we both said, our fellow fans are among the things that we are most thankful for. And being able to share this wonderful mythology that George Lucas created and that continues today, multi-generational, many points of entry. It's just a wonderful thing that has enriched my life and changed my life in so many dramatic ways.
Hear, hear. As we wrap up the show, I want to thank you, of course, for sharing your amazing memories and stories. I mean, I wish you had a weekly podcast because I could listen to hear you talk about your stories forever, my friend. You did pop up pretty recently on Disney Plus. Speaking of Boba Fett Under the Hood. Talk to us kind of about that. That was so cool to see you on that, and of course you should be on there. I really had a lot of fun with that. You must have had a ball filming that as well.
It was great. It was something that was done fairly recently. I think they came up with the idea fairly recently and pulled it all together in just like 2 or 3 months. And the crew was here for about 3 or 4 hours, and there was an off-camera host who was asking me a lot of questions, and then we did the walkthrough of the museum. But it was a lot of fun putting together. I've done a lot of video, but this was great, and it was really fun to see myself pop up on the screen and talk about one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite actors, Jeremy Bulloch, the late Jeremy Bulloch, and it was a blast.
And I texted you and I said, hey, one of my students just said, hey, did you see that Boba Fett special? Did you see that guy's collection? That was so cool. And I said, not only did I see it, I've seen it in person, and that guy's my friend. Well, Steve, you gave me a lot of street credit, my friend, for that one.
Great.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
As we near the end of the show today, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights. I'm on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation, talk about this week's show, or just talk about some Star Wars. We have a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends as well as catch up with longtime friends along the way. I also want to thank all of the new and longtime members of the CWK Alliance and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement. If you want to join the CWK Alliance, go to www.cwkalliance.com and sign up today. Not only will you help out Coffee with Kenobi, but you also get access to CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour-Over hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. Feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zaire, MRZEHR, or on Instagram at DanZareCWK. There are also a lot more ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. Check us out on Pinterest or subscribe to our Coffee with Kenobi YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, you can find Facebook Live video, different interviews throughout the years, highlights of video coverage throughout the Coffee with Kenobi history, and the audio podcast itself. You can order my book, The Star Wars Book, which I co-wrote with Lucasfilm's Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, Walmart, or anywhere books are sold. You can also find my writing on Coffee with Kenobi's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I am an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute occasionally to articles about Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. If you are considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired so you can take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our Coffee with Kenobi sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet you want to go on your vacation. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the Force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word, and I can't thank you enough for your help, for your support, and your friendship. I love so much being a part of this wonderful Star Wars community, and I can't thank you enough for all that you do for me and Coffee with Kenobi. Fabulous. Well, we've talked about Rancho Obi-Wan. Please, as we wrap up, let everybody know where they can find out more about Rancho Obi-Wan, where they can be a member, and where they can chat with you on social media.
So ranchoobiwan.org is the place to go. You can become a member of our virtual museum. Through November 29th, you can catch up on our virtual gala this year and see all kinds of other video clips. For a mere $10 contribution, you can become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan. You get an annual membership kit. We have a special, again, through the end of November, a special catch-up. If you missed out on any of the last 10 years, you can register at a reduced price and get the patch and membership kit from the years that you missed, or do an entire wrap up for the 10 years. We've had a lot of people do that. So it's been good. These have been tough times, obviously, for a lot of small businesses and nonprofits. And we appreciate all the help that we've been getting.
Absolutely. Well, be sure to sign up for that, check out the virtual goodness of the Rancho Obi-Wan Gala. You've got till November 29th. Do not miss out. It's going to a great cause, and you get an incredible amount from it, as we get an incredible amount of joy and gratefulness for having you on the show. Steve, thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving. I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Same here, Dan, and thank you very much for the invitation.
A huge, huge thank you to Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan for joining us on Thanksgiving. I am thankful for each and every one of you, for your friendship, for your listening to the show, for your spreading the word about Coffee with Kenobi, both here on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and even TikTok. I actually added TikTok recently. I think I've talked about that before. I am thankful for all of you. Please have a wonderful rest of your Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and we transition into the Christmas holiday season. There will be lots more from Coffee with Kenobi, including some topics that I'm very excited to share with you. And next week, by the way, speaking of excited to share with you, is the debut of my second Star Wars book, the Star Wars Character Encyclopedia, updated and expanded edition. Lots more to come as we talk about the creation of that book. Enjoy your weekend and turkey, and remember, this is the podcast you're looking for. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.